Hi,
Hi, Asel. How are
everyone.
you?
It's so good. I was telling you that I am in love, so that's why my outfit, the way you see, is a bit different than Vicky. Vicky's very professional, so I'm very admiring you. But I thought I'm just ready for the summer, for everything, and I was too depressed the last however
Mm,
many days about Ukraine, obviously. So now
yeah,
I feel like I also want to do a bit of a rest and
yeah.
the luxury that I have. So, welcome everyone. I guess we should say because Vicky and I have decided to start this lives weekly to talk about transition, to talk about all the things that humanitarians are going through and wanting something else, and how we can ensure that whatever we're desiring happens. And therefore, we wanted to do this conversation. We also want to invite everyone else who's interested in joining us in this conversation to be talking about transitioning, to be talking about life on purpose, to be talking about all the wonderful things and how we can get there despite having all the difficulties and challenges that we have, right? So that's the reason why we're here. And we're hoping to have this maybe for about 20 to 30 minutes. So it's not going to be long, but still, we want to address some of the issues and questions that many of us may be having in our hearts, maybe discussing with others. And that's the reason why we're here.
Mm.
So, the reason why we thought Vicky and I would be qualified to talk about this is because we've done this. So that's why, Vicky, why don't you start telling about the journey that you made, and I will continue.
Thank you very much. And wonderful work outfit, isn't it? And as I was saying, what is a professional work outfit these days, anyhow?
Right.
But thank you for a question, Asel. Very important question that we are seeing with humanitarians. How do I transit? Why
Mm,
do I transit? What's on the other side? And so many
yeah.
questions that people are asking themselves. Aid workers are asking themselves. So for me, I've worked really almost 20 years in international humanitarian sector, mostly working in Middle East and Africa. And my last 4 years were in headquarters, mostly in protection. Really, so that's something that was so close to my heart and deep to my heart. But in the last several years, I felt that the motivation to work with people was there, but somehow the environment, so many other things that were contributing, that
Mm,
I knew I felt I wasn't working really. I wasn't aligned with my values. I wasn't aligned with my life purpose. And I felt it for a long time. I just didn't know what
mm,
was the alternative. And
yeah.
so it took me quite a few years to realize what is on the other, where do I want to go and how do I transit to the other side. And for me, the question and the key was, I actually want to go back to working with people. I want to go back
Mm,
to be able to deliver something meaningful, give some value to people. So this is why I became a coach, and I really love it and enjoy it. And I have my enthusiasm and really spark, I would say, back into my life.
mm.
So that's really very shortly my story. And what about you, Asel?
Yeah, I think my story is also realizing after 10 years of working for an amazing organization which I love. And that was, I think, my first love um, in life in terms of working, right? So I grew with that organization so much so that I never imagined I would. But also, I realized that I have a passion that I want to work with people individually in my case. So that's also the reason why I joined in the first place. So, and that's how I decided that I want to pursue a passion that I want, which is, I guess, helping people make decisions in life to choose the life they want, right? And
Yeah,
also create an environment, a work environment where if we're really looking at work being the center of our lives for many of us, then at least make that
yeah,
center being very fulfilling,
Yeah.
bringing joy and content and purpose,
Yeah.
and knowing that you are making that difference with someone. You're having the result that you want, and I think that's what I was craving for, and that's what I decided to create. And this is what I've been doing now for over a year, and helping people decide whether they want to transition or not, and if they do, how it's going to go, or
Mhm.
what is their journey, right? So that's why my mission is to try and help answer as many questions as possible in relation to transitioning, and so that we have this more predictable or more sense of what is it like to transition. And I think also important to note here is that our goal is never to say you have to leave humanitarian world, or or you have to join humanitarian world. That's not what we want to say. We want to advocate for living life the way you want to, no matter where you live or no matter what you do. And I think that's what we're going for, no? So that's why, obviously, there are a lot of questions that come up. People asking themselves, searching for answers, and I think the the topic that I would love to propose today to talk about with Vicky is the topic of it being hard, right? And I know that we've probably all experiences where, when we are having overwhelm, stressed out, exhaustion, tiredness, and then also having to think about, okay, what if I transition? What if I do something else? Or what if I even do my exact job, but from a different approach? But what if it's hard? And what am I going to do? Because I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if I will have the stability or if I will have the financial means to do the thing that I want to do. So therefore, I may just stay where I am, right? So that's usually the topic that
Mm.
is the most burning for people. Is like, it's going to be hard, so I may just stay here where I am. How would you address that? If I'm sure people are probably asking you as well, but what is
Yeah.
your take on it, Vicky?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, it's a very good question because we know it's not easy. We know that both of the options usually, or many of the options we have, are not easy. Like if we ask ourselves, I usually ask my clients, so what are the options? What is the option you have? If you imagine
Mm,
yourself staying where you are, where are you in 5 years? How are you feeling
mm,
in 5 years? And so the realization is that, oh my God, like I really cannot really imagine even staying two, let alone five. But for
mm,
those who say, actually, I could imagine, it's just I would need to, adjust, adapt. So that's I think one of the key questions that I always ask people. Like how does it look like in 2, 4, 5 years, or
yeah,
even 10? I
yeah,
also think that hard is like a huge kind of a scary
yeah,
monster. So I always advocate for like breaking things down into
yeah,
smaller chunks, right? So what is the hard part? And when
yeah,
people start peeling, you start peeling off like onion, like bit by bit. Look, and they start realizing that actually there's very one small thing that is really hard about it. That
yeah,
the thing about adjusting salary, I could live with that. The thing of relocating my family closer to home, I could do that. So really breaking things into chunks, small
yeah,
chunks, usually brings so much clarity
yeah,
into people's lives, that and address really the one that they feel is really the hard.
yeah.
What about you, Asel? How do you address it? The
Yeah,
question of
so that's a
hard.
great question because I I feel like I've been, answering that in my own life as well, especially before choosing a different path after 10 years, right? Because I felt also like, my previous organization was my life, basically, they took me from the university right after university. That's all I knew what to do. I studied about refugees to work for
Yeah.
them. So it was like I built up my whole life around it basically. And
Yeah.
then leaving that life was not easy, obviously.
Mhm.
And then I think the reasoning that I came to realize for myself at least is that I I'm not having an easy life there either. And once I transition, it's not going to be easy either. But I also know that I can do hard things. And also, I trust myself that I will make things work. Because if I made things work so far, and I learned how to overcome all of these difficulties at my previous job, that means I'm capable
Yeah.
of doing the same or more in my new job. And I think knowing that I can trust myself to do that allowed me to make the decision to go for transitioning. No, and that's why whenever my clients or people whoever asks me is like saying, well, it's hard, then I always say, well, it's not easy now either. Right? So
Yeah.
it's not like, I mean, we don't want to fool ourselves to thinking that what we know now is better just because we know, even though it's hard. Of course, it's hard. And also, we know that in our current life, there are difficult parts and the easy parts. And the same in after transitioning, there will be the difficult parts and the easy
Yeah.
parts. But the important part, I think, to recognize is that we can do those hard things because we are humanitarians. I mean, the amount of hard things we've done probably is like, if
Yeah.
we tell anyone, they're like, my God, you're like super people, no?
Yeah.
Super power people. And that's exactly it. And I want to advocate that let's use those powers that we have to our
Yeah.
advantage to creating and building the life we want, irrespective of whether we leave our job or not, whether we want to stay where we are. And if we want to stay, amazing. But if we want to leave, also amazing. So let's make that work instead of keep entertaining this nagging feeling or this feeling of, oh, I could have done this, but I'm not doing
Mhm.
it, or I could have gone for that, but I didn't, and whatever, and guessing what could have happened if I did this. Instead of doing that, let's just go and start working towards building something that we want to build.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it resonates very much what you're saying, and you're mentioning few very important points. And this is what I'm also seeing with a lot of humanitarians that I work with, the inner strength and the skills and competencies that they have, or aid workers have, that many sometimes as though people forget that all these incredible things that they have managed to do throughout their aid work, whether it's
yeah,
like this super resilience, super skills, the mobilization when you are faced with something that you just have to go and you mobilize within
yeah,
seconds. So all these amazing competencies and skills, sometimes when in discussion they somehow even forget about it, and that's
yeah,
really some of the work that I really work with my clients to ask them to recall all these moments in your past assignments, how you reacted in different assignments, and what was the most amazing way, what was the peak experience you
yeah,
had. And this is really very powerful because aid
yeah,
workers can do absolutely astonishing things and like have so many skills,
yeah,
but just really need a conscious effort
yeah,
to write them down and to really recall all the
yeah,
skills that they had. And I also,
exactly.
one of the things that you also mentioned is the question of identity. At the beginning, you mentioned that it was all your life, right?
Yeah,
Like that's all what you knew. Then you went directly from university. And I think it's for a lot of aid workers
yeah,
that they start relatively young and have all their passion and just go into this, but throughout the life and the years spent, the priorities change. Maybe some people want to really feel that they need to start different way of life. Maybe they
yeah,
want to start family, etc. And really. the identity, and I'm doing a research on that, and transitions in humanitarian professionals, and really the identity in humanitarians is extremely strong.
Yeah.
Like in most of the cases, it's the top identity, and so
Mm.
really, what I found in talking to so many people and throughout coaching, but also the research I'm doing, is that to I don't even want to say give up the identity, because I think you cannot really give up humanitarian identity, but really to shift or start adding other identities is really crucial. And that's
Yes,
why the most important work in transitions is actually internal one, is the
exactly.
internal one, to realize, to really be aligned with your values and realign yourself with your values, realign yourself with your purpose,
Yeah.
and also explore what other identities do I have, to allow
Yeah.
yourself to say that, okay, I'm an aid worker. I might be an active aid worker, or I might be an aid worker that is not professionally active. You will always be an aid worker or
Yeah.
humanitarian worker or humanitarian professional. But what else? You can also
Exactly.
be artist, you can also be a musician, you can be an IT expert. And really, I'm so amazed when I'm talking to these people. They are transitioning. I mean, the variety of jobs they go into, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Exactly.
I mean, from working to the bank, to being artist, opening gallery, being coaches like ourselves, working for think tanks, working for government
Yeah.
agencies. It's just so varied. It's
Yeah.
really incredible. And that's, for me, it's really a confirmation of really the enormous skills and capacities that aid workers have within
Exactly.
themselves.
Exactly. And the other
Yeah.
thing that I just remembered is that when you're saying this is that, we often, like in humanitarian, I don't know, when we hang out together, we often talk about like normal civilian friends' problems as like, well, in comparison to what we're going through and what we're going through with affected people, those people back home, they have very minor, I mean, in quotes, no minor problems.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that, one has more problem or the other, but I'm just saying that I think that thinking or that discussion also comes from this belief of ours that we know how to solve huge problems.
Hmm.
And if we are capable of solving huge problems and at the end coming out with such adrenaline and thinking, my God, we are so capable of doing this, right? Like, think of so many catastrophic events or tragedies that we're able to help solve or do our parts of solving it. Maybe not all the time was great success, but at least we've done so much for
Yeah.
solving it, which shows that we have so much power within us that we can use for any other parts of our lives that we want to, if we take time to do it.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes the problem is that many of us humanitarians have, so much going on in life, and obviously we all understand that. But also we need to realize that if we are not showing up for ourselves as much as we're showing up for people we're serving, then we may not last long,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because our powers and our strength are not limitless. We need to rest and recuperate, and yeah, and also want to be doing things using those abilities and skills in the way that is very useful for others. But if we are always constantly exhausting ourselves or overwhelming and stressing ourselves and not taking the time to
Yeah.
reflect and think back and rest, then we may not be able to bring those big impacts that we are
Yeah.
capable of bringing to other people's lives, right? So that's why, lately I've been thinking about,
Hmm.
imagine how much more we humanitarians could do if we took time to rest, if we took time to actually, I don't know, decide how we want to design our lives and how we want to show up in
Yeah.
the world, and and doing things on purpose with that level of fresh enthusiasm to the work,
Mhm.
how much more we could have done. So that's why I guess the point we're trying to make here is really that we have so much more potential maybe than we have yet to explore,
Yeah,
and we can do all of that in our current circumstances where we are, or transitioning to something else like
yeah,
Vicky was talking about. An amazing part is that we have already developed so many skills. I mean, like, the on the top of my head, the creating new identities, solving the greatest problems of the universe. Uh, the other skills I think often we don't mention, which is courage, right? How
yeah,
courageous we are actually to be doing amazing things in the world. And we can use those skills to building that life that we want. And that's
yeah,
what we want you to do, that in not be postponing or not finding time to do it, but rather think about it, how you could make a change in your life, in people's life that you love, in the people that you're serving, how much more you could make. Have you taken the time to
yeah,
take care of yourself, to really be looking after yourself
yeah,
and making those purposeful decisions,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, I find it very important what you're saying. You know, I wrote two words as you were speaking, and the first one was really headspace when you were talking about taking the
Mm,
time.
yeah.
And this is and because it resonates so much because I myself have not taken the time. I simply didn't have. I remember even saying to some of my colleagues, I was like, I simply don't have even the headspace to think. I don't have the time. I
Mm,
don't have
yeah.
the energy to think.
Yeah.
And I know that this is the case for so many aid workers living really super busy lives in some of the very active missions. You know, the somehow requirement or the culture is that you work over weekend or half of the weekend at least. And obviously, of course, if there is an emergency, then of course you cannot question. But just think about the impact that it has on your life if you don't take time to think regularly, sit and really take the headspace to realize where you're walking, what is it, where you're going. And
Yeah.
that's really crucial. Just sometimes you have to be, and this is difficult for many aid workers, almost selfish to try to
Mm,
take half an hour, 1 hour from something that, you know, just stop writing the report and just take
yeah.
half an hour, right? And the second word that came to my mouth was a strategy. As you were talking about designing your life, and you know, the parallel I gave to one of my clients I was working with last year. I said, "How many strategies have you written in your life?"
Yeah.
And he was
That's so
like, I
true.
don't know, gazillions. I mean, how many strategies myself, like how many strategies are written from A to Z or contributed or
That's
commented?
true.
I mean, gazillions. How many strategies have you written for your own life?
Mm,
Nothing. And this is,
yeah.
I think this is something really crucial that we find it justified, absolutely normal. Like, you know, you have strategy,
Right.
you need to do this.
Yeah.
But for your own life, there is
Yeah.
nothing. There is no marking, there is no KPAs, there is no indicators, nothing, right? And so, you know, that then we shouldn't be surprised that, you know, some you
Yeah.
get derailed and you notice 3 years later, but I actually didn't want to be here. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit of some of the thoughts that came to me when you were
Yeah.
talking
No,
about
absolutely. Absolutely.
consciously
So,
creating life.
exactly. I think, what we really want, I guess, at least for me, the culture that I would love to create with my humanitarians is that life where those people who are serving, their lives and their problems are as important as our own.
Yeah.
And we want to solve for it as much as we do for other people, right? And the culture where it's no longer selfish to be
Yeah.
taking day off or going home on time after work or spending more time with your loved ones because they also need you as much as those people you're
Yeah.
serving.
Yeah.
and and having that um, culture where we no longer be judging people for choosing things the way they choose to, instead of just being part of the culture of working, 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 and nothing else, or working, working, and then partying, or I don't know, some one event and then continuing doing, right? So away from that culture, but more to the culture of, okay, every one of us work differently. Every one of
Mhm.
us has our own way of approaching things and wanting to have the life the way they want to. And therefore, they can do that without the pressure, without the 24/7 availability, without the all the other things that come up with our culture. So I think that's the culture I want to contribute to,
Yeah.
where we individually know how to take care of ourselves, how to live our lives, how to want to live our lives, and we honor that as much as we honor other people's needs when they are in difficult situation, right? So therefore, I think we want to wrap up because I
Mhm.
promised not a long conversation. But so the message, I guess, if you need to work on something in your current circumstances, um, what's the one thing you could do, Vicky? What do you think? So if whoever's listening to us and listen later or watch us, they hear us and they finally have something that clicked and they are like, huh, okay, I will start doing something. What do you think the first thing they could do? What is your suggestion?
I think there is no magic trick. You've already mentioned this. Just take the time. Take the time and sit
Yeah,
down and do this regularly.
yeah,
Maybe you will need some accountability. Maybe you will need to work with someone, but just take the time and think, what is it? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And start
yeah.
from there.
Hmm.
Yeah, a lot of other things, but just taking the time and self-reflect is
Yeah.
really the most important, I would say. What about you? What would be your advice?
Yeah. So I'm thinking, one thing that I love doing with everyone is fantasizing about what I'm wanting. And even if you don't have time for anything else, just think about all the things of what you're wanting. And then once you're clear on that, then you can look at what you have now.
Mhm.
And then you realize that is it really worth not going for what I'm wanting? You answer it for yourself, obviously. But I think for, this vision or whatever we call it, whatever we like thinking of our life to be, that's possible for you. You know it's possible for you if you take time, like Vicky's saying, but fantasizing about it. And once you know what that is, what's stopping you really is the question, no? And the answer is always you, but obviously you know that. But maybe you get then specific as to what exactly is stopping you. What are the fears? What are the questions you have? You're welcome to come with us next Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Eastern Time. Welcome to come over and come live and talk to us or make questions and discuss with us, or you can also come to a networking event that I'm hosting on 27th of each month. If you want to join that event, please message me. And we're also building a community with Viki on talking about transitioning, all the topics on this. If you want to join that, you let me know as well. So you have a lot of resources and you have a lot of support opportunities as well. The question is, are you willing to use it to make something happen, right? And the answer is, of course, with you. You answer what's best for you.
Mhm.
Okay. With that, Vicky, thank you so much for doing
Thank you
this.
very much. It's really great. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone, and hope to see you next week.
exactly. Thank you so much, and hope to see you next week with another topic. So if you want to send us your topics, feel free to do that.
Yeah.
Until then, have a good week.
Have a
Bye,
great week.
everyone.
Bye.